Three, two, one. Hello, and welcome to the Mindful Leadership Podcast. And as always, my fellow host, Natasha Rocha. Hello, Natasha. And
Hello.
our special guest this week, Amanda Marek. And we're delighted to have you on, Amanda. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Welcome. I'm quickly going to read out your bio, and then I'm going to ask you if you could elaborate on it and tell us a little bit about your journey, um, just so that we have a better understanding. And Amanda is a Reiki master teacher, light language channel, student herbalist, and a cardiac nurse. She uses energy healing to help nurses recover from burnout and guides others to activate their own light language. And she's had quite a bit of experience with stress, anxiety, burnout, especially related to your nursing job. And it would be wonderful if you could elaborate on that and also show us how you used boundaries and your belief systems to really overcome this and how you used healing energy to support that journey. I think that's quite an interesting journey you've been on, and I'm really excited to know more about that.
Yes. Hey, thank you for the introduction. So yeah, I've been a nurse for about 6 years now, and it's definitely a very challenging career. A couple of years ago, I experienced some burnout, and I honestly didn't even recognize it during the time. It was like after that period when I had partially recovered that I realized. Um, and yeah, what that felt like for me was just really exhausted all the time, like feeling like I can't get enough sleep and calling in sick a lot because I would like wake up from my shift and I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't go into work today. I just don't have it in me. And a lot of stress and some anxiety about going to work as well. Like before my shifts, I would feel quite anxious. And yeah, I think the moment that I really realized it is when my manager actually like set up a meeting with me to talk about my attendance and how much sick time I was taking. Um, and then I was like, oh wow, maybe there was something actually going on there. And so looking back at how I recovered from that burnout, the boundaries were definitely one thing. And so like I reduced my hours at work, and I consider that a boundary because it's like a boundary on how much time I go into work, because I know if I go too much, like full time was too much for me. And yeah, allowing myself time away from work, because it's really easy to take work home with you, especially if you it's like a really difficult shift at work. So learning ways to kind of separate that and let it go, which it's still challenging when you have those difficult shifts. I find like, you could journal about it, or kind of like a brain dump. Like, I often feel like I want to talk to someone about it, and just kind of like complain really about everything that happened during my shift. But I don't always want to like burden like my friends with that. So even just like talking out loud to myself, or like recording in a voice notes, you don't even have to like listen back to it, just to like kind of get it out. So helpful. And yeah, I really struggled for a long time with how I viewed rest. Like I always used to think that I was just lazy because I would like have a hard time getting up off the couch and like doing things like washing my dishes. And looking back on that, like I was spending so much energy at work, and then I was expecting myself to come home and like do all this other stuff as well. But like I really needed to rest, and like it takes like at least a full day actually, like after I finished my shifts to really recover. So kind of working on like those beliefs that I had, that we always have to be productive and that like resting isn't acceptable, or that you really have to earn the right to rest. So yeah, that was a big one for me. And yeah, the energy healing. So I do Reiki. So with the energy healing, it's like a form of relaxation and stress relief, and it also realigns like your energy centers, your chakras, and releases any negative energy from you. So with Reiki, you're able to do it on yourself. You could also go to someone else for it, which is nice as well. But I find it really valuable to be able to give it to myself, because then you can just do it like whenever you need. And with Reiki, I find is really good at just being so relaxing that it takes you out of that fight or flight stress response that we often find ourselves in, especially if we work like stressful jobs. So I think that's really important for recovery as well.
Oh, thank you, Amanda. I want to and just thank you for sharing so much. And I have so many questions, but there's one thing I do want to say before I forget, which was on your Instagram, you'd posted something like, now I'm going to get this totally wrong, but I'll just tell you what it meant to me, which was you had this quote, and it was something like, you know, or maybe it's a series of quotes that I put together in my head, but like the first one was that we often like tightly couple our productivity with our self-love, with our self-worth, and that's ultimately dangerous, right? I mean, you could argue that for anything. If if I tightly couple my laptop to my self-love, it's like, that seems like a really dangerous thing. And then the other thing you said is something along the lines of that our total capacity for productivity is like constrained only by our self-love and self-care. And that like those like principles for me, just I know it really resonated with me. And if you told me that when I was burning out 2 years ago, I would have found that quite shocking to hear, and quite hard to get into my head. And I love that that you also, as part of your journey, that it wasn't super clear at the start that you were burnt out, and that you had these really high expectations of your body, like, keep on adrenal burnout, like keep going. And I'd love to just go back for a moment to some of those challenges that you experienced. So when you first started to go through that journey, you said you'd had a meeting with your manager, and you'd started to reflect on the absence of from work, the sick leave, as one indicator. Like, what else did you explore at the time, like inwardly?
Yeah, so I guess it was just really how I was feeling. I felt like I just was not enjoying my life anymore. Because I would have like 2 or 3 days off at a time, and I would take at least half of that time or more to just like do nothing and rest and recover. And I felt like I just didn't have enough time to live my life. It felt like I was always preparing for an upcoming shift. And it was like that dread, like there's always another shift coming. And I just feel so exhausted.
Oh, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I experienced some of that when I went part-time also.
I really resonate with your journey as well. Also finding myself in burnout and starting to. So I already had a foundation in kind of like spirituality and energy, and things like that. So for me, it was quite easy to turn around and go, okay, I have a block somewhere. I need to do something. Something needs to change. I also, because I'm Portuguese and I did like hands-on healing. So I typed in like hands-on healing, like what is that in English? And they were like Reiki. So off I went and I did Reiki. And Reiki is an amazing modality, absolutely, as you say, to start that healing process and start to opening up. But I'm going to ask a question in the sense of how did you find that transition of being really scientific in the nurse world to then, because I know that Reiki used to be used in hospitals and is used in hospitals and kind of like in Australia, some parts of the States and some countries are starting to show up. How did you find that moving from more of a natural metaphysical healing to, as opposed to kind of like looking at kind of like Western medicine and science as such? How did you find that?
Yeah, so I definitely used to not believe in any of that kind of stuff. I was
Mm-hmm.
very like scientific.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like introduced through my friends. Like I have a friend who is a Reiki master. She's the one that
Mm-hmm.
I learned from. And yeah, she was just talking about it. And I was starting my spiritual journey at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really interested. I had a session from her and I really loved it. And I was like, this is what I want to learn how to do as well. Um, and yeah, I guess I'm just kind of, I've become very open-minded since starting my spiritual journey. So it's allowed me to kind of um, let go of some of the beliefs I had that like this is the only way and be open to new things. And also like working in the hospital, I've
Mm-hmm.
seen how our Western healthcare isn't always that effective at things. Like I think it's really great for like acute illness and trauma
Mm-hmm.
situations, but like when people with chronic illness, I think we need to kind of find a better way. So that also led me into the herbalism, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
really learning right now, because I think it would be really helpful for us to not just focus on the Western stuff and say that nothing else really works, but recognize that, like, on the other side of the world, they're using Chinese medicine and Ayurveda and all that stuff, as well as the more Western stuff as well. So I think it's really about incorporating these things and incorporating the energy healing and like recognizing that we're not just physical beings, but we're also emotional and spiritual beings, and that it all plays in with our when we have like illness and stuff like that.
It's beautiful. And I love how you're merging both medicines together, which is amazing. And that, yeah, bringing that in to support your work at the moment, which is actually quite an amazing journey you've been on and kind of like moving through all of that and listening to your body and which is sometimes we just taught to ignore it, you know. It's like, yeah, we'll sleep next week or next month. Oh, I'm going to be planning a holiday. I'll rest then. And I think we forget how resilient our bodies are. And I love how you're bringing the balance of the two worlds to help support you at work, which is pretty amazing. Um, so my question for you is around boundaries. I find setting boundaries is great, but then it's the upholding it and the feelings that come in afterwards. You know, I found that quite difficult on my journey because it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then that guilt, something for me, I felt guilt coming in and going, oh no, you know, because like self-care, I don't know, there was a belief system somewhere that it equated being selfish, right? And it's like, and it was like for me as well, it's embarrassing to do nothing. And people used to tease me. They used to be like, ha ha ha, you don't know what it is like to be nothing. And I was like, but I am doing nothing. And they're like, oh, but you've just brought the groceries for the month and you've done this and you've done that. So it is quite a change. So how do you uphold your boundaries, making sure that you keep them? Because especially in life and in business, the first thing that we sacrifice is usually our self-care. I think we're just so programmed to do that. How do you uphold your boundaries?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do think it's very related to that self-love and self-worth
Mm-hmm.
that we mentioned earlier, because if you if you don't have like that self-love, then it's much easier to just let yourself like be used more, like then you're letting people cross your boundaries and you're not upholding them. So once you like recognize like that you deserve to treat yourself well and not like lead yourself down the road to burnout, then it's a little easier to say like no, like I know doing that is going to affect me negatively, like it's not going to be for my best interest. And also recognizing that you have to take care of yourself first in order to take care of others. Like if you have trouble setting boundaries around others, yeah, if you're always giving, then you have a lot less to give to them. So you need to take that time for take care of yourself so that you can take care of others as well. And also just really practice. Like when you first start, it's definitely a lot harder and you feel that guilt come in. And also, like if you set a boundary with another person and they don't really react the way you would like them to, I think it has a lot to do with people pleasing as well. You just kind of have to keep on going, and then it'll become so much easier.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
There's so much gold in that, Amanda.
Yeah.
I wish I'd listened to this podcast like two years ago, and then been reminded a few weeks ago as well. And Amanda and I do some work together, and she's on one of my training courses. And you see me like I've been really busy in my business since I started it in end of May. And some of those boundaries for me, I found that I think that the thing that really stood out for me that you're describing is like the formation of boundaries is some of the hardest parts of boundaries themselves, and then also the enforcement. But during the formation, I found it was just really easy for me to be accidentally booked by many people in times that I wasn't necessarily comfortable with. So I had 2 or 3 13-hour days over the last couple of weeks. And when it happened in my calendar, I was like, there's a boundary here that I've like allowed to be stepped over. What do I do? And I explored a whole range of different things. Like I did things like cleared out the day before, cleared out the day after, and made sure that I'd rest and some fun things to do as well. And then I put breaks in, and then I moved a couple of things out of the way because I knew it was too much to do. And today, I think today I had a very long list of like self-care because it's quite a long day. It's like walks in nature and napping and some upgrade geek work on my camper van, stuff like this. But when someone says to me, and they did today, they said, could you do a session, tonight? And I was like, I can't do tonight. And they said, but it's really important. Like, I really need to do it. And I said, and I'm also realizing the power of a boundary, which is like, if you want to see me at like 11 p.m. UK time, I'm going to be a wreck. You don't really want a service from me at that time. And the boundaries are actually, as they're very beneficial to you, and mostly, most important to me in my self-care, for me to go and continue sustainably in my business. And I was interested in that formation process. Like, do you yourself, Amanda, or anyone you're working with, like, encourage like an approach for exploring like the formation of a boundary? Like, how do you know when something, like you were talking about working hours, how do you know when something feels good and bad, or somewhere in between? How do you find the right place, the right balance for a boundary?
Yeah, so I do think it does take a little bit of trial and error because it's hard to know before, like, oh, this is how many hours I need to work. Like how you said, when you booked that long day, then you realized, oh, this is a bit too much for me. But I also believe a lot about like listening to our bodies, because our bodies are very wise. They have lots of knowledge in them. And it's very simple to just ask like a simple yes or no question, and your body will respond in a yes or no answer. So if you're wondering like, should I say yes to this or should I not? Instead of just feeling like the guilt, like, yes, I have to say yes to everything. You kind of like, the practice I use is I really tune into my body, like relax, and maybe take a couple deep breaths, and you like ask the question and you feel how your body responds. So for me, it's usually a yes feels very light and expansive. It might feel like a little bit warm, and then a no feels more cold and retractive and heavy. So I think it's really valuable to learn what your yes and no feels like and start practicing that.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
that is some good advice in learning that. And it's so funny, John, I totally agree with you. Like when you do what you love and you have this underlying kind of like workaholic kind of, you're like, oh, I've overscheduled myself yet again, which is brutal. But one thing that I remember, and I used to have a manager that I used to work with, and it's so interesting because he would work and then he would leave at 5 o'clock, and he was the CEO of the company. He'd leave at 5:30 every day, and he'd go home, he'd have dinner with his family, put his kids to bed, and then he would work until 3 o'clock in the morning. But that time of, this is my sacred time, it doesn't matter if it comes high or hell water, kind of like inspired me to do the same, in the sense of, this is that sacred space. And that this conversation is reminding me to bring in that these are the times that it's like, it's done. And you're right, especially in the work that we do, in the sense of, my brain doesn't work if I'm too exhausted. I don't channel 100%. So yeah, feeling into our bodies, I think, is a great way to say, does it enhance? Does it deplete? And if it does deplete, then it really is a no, because that we want to help everybody. We want to be that best, give that best customer service as well. So it's very interesting. But yeah, listening into our bodies, I think, and we're so taught to ignore our bodies, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, it's with our mind. It's like mind, like, and it's funny because I was actually taught that as a kid. Your mind overrules the heart, your mind controls the body, which it does, but it wasn't in that way of kind of like, yeah, control, relax, bring it in, take that time to decompress. It's so important. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I loved
Mhm.
some of your previous conversation, Natasha. You were talking about like the ship, like the body would have like a mutiny, right? Like this, you've got a captain, but like if your
Yeah,
body is the ship, and the ship, a captain without a ship is not going to go anywhere or anywhere fast.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
No, it's important.
I was going to
Yeah.
ask Amanda, like, what's your experience or advice on like being able to enforce the boundaries, because it's also really hard, right? And it as especially in our line of work, when we're trying to help people and help them on their healing journeys, it seems counterintuitive on in that first instinct. It's just like when someone says help, I need help right now, but you're really tired, or you know that that's a request outside of your boundary. Like, what advice do you have for helping enforce the boundaries?
Um, yeah, I guess it kind of comes back to like the self-love. Like you have to recognize like if I overstep this boundary, like I'm going against myself, like I'm hurting myself. Um, and yeah, I don't know if I have much more to answer that.
Have you had any experiences of where uh it I don't know, sometimes when I enforce my boundaries, it's quite shocking to people, right? Because they're like, because I'm so happy and so positive all the time, and then suddenly I say no, like no, I just like I don't work past 6 p.m. on that day, that
Mm.
I'm not doing that. And often I get a reaction of, please, like maybe just like a short thing, or like, or it can be financially, but like, could you do something for free? Just do a thing for free. And it's like, well, you wouldn't go into a garage or a shop and ask for something for free, would you? Like, it's an energy exchange and often financial.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I just sometimes feel that people are a bit shocked when we say no, and that learning to say no is a really, for me, it feels like a lifelong journey of learning how to say it nicely but firmly, and to be able to offer, like, like Natasha was saying, like, well, clearly you can't, that CEO, you could not, have a meeting with him at 5:30, right? But he would have said something like, well, you know, talk to my assistant, you'll find a slot outside of those hours.
Yeah.
I was just interested if you've had experiences of that, Amanda.
Yeah, I don't know if I've had so much, nothing that like comes to mind, but I think it can be really helpful to also explain to someone if they're very shocked, like explain like, I need to have this time to rest, because if I don't, then I'm not going to be able to give you as good a quality of service.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of explaining your reasoning why. And I think it also has a lot to do with people pleasing. Like, we're so conditioned to just say yes to everyone and please others other than ourselves. So that's kind of like a lifelong journey for a lot of people to heal that as well.
Yeah. I tend to use my calendar quite a lot. And it's actually quite interesting because I've started taking back my weekends. So I don't respond until kind of like the Monday. What I do need to do is communicate that so that people don't think that I'm ignoring them. Because usually it's like those time slots that I place in. And I think that because a lot of us are so like sensitive, especially if you kind of like sales, marketing, in the healing works, I mean, we're all very empathic in one way or another. So we can read people's emotions. And sometimes when we say no, we feel the effect of the no, and then we're just like, "Ugh." And then still realizing, oh my goodness, I am the cause of that no, of that feeling. It makes us a little bit kind of like harder to work with that. So yeah, it can be quite hard, and how we enforce that in business is pretty, or at work is pretty hard, because there's that fear of losing one's job as well, right? Which is quite interesting. And then there's also kind of like, how can effective can we be? And then it takes us into that spiral. So I think you're right, going back into the body and just going, how does this feel if it's outside the norm?
Yeah,
I think is important.
I love the calendar idea. Like, I think that's what I'm doing, Amanda. I think I've been doing that for the last couple of weeks now, and which is I look in my calendar like a few days ahead, and I see what's booked, and I look at it, and I just ask my body. I think I'm saying, I just haven't really been consciously doing it, and I love your idea of the practice and the sensations as well. Like listening, I almost hear my body like a voice, and I look at the calendar and say, what's sustainable for that day, and what would ending that day feel good like, and often the response is like 3 hours, like in that time, put it in the calendar and call it break time, knowing fine well I can't accept, that means immediately on my website customers can't book me, and but I mean it's just the next day, right? And I think that's also a really interesting expectation, is that even in our line of work, even in emergency situations, it's
Mm.
not, it's often not required like that hour. It just, it can feel like that. And that's something I've been doing, is putting in break time and some fun things too. And constantly like seeing ahead to achieve like some sort of balance. But yeah, I love the idea of asking my body more. And Natasha, you'd also said things like to me before, like, put in slots for your customers,
Mm.
like a little free slot that's just like customer one, you know, or like customer for this service that I'm offering.
Yeah.
You'd be great there, and it's allocate time, almost like your body knows you're going to be ready to prepare for it, just like I prepare for the podcast. Natasha and I caught each other meditating as we first joined. It was so funny. We're ignoring each other, just sat there silently.
But it was awesome. But we were working together at the same time. So John was setting up a safe space, and I was opening up the Akashic records of the podcast at the same time, which was quite interesting. So it was quite beautiful. Amanda is going to ask with curiosity, in the sense of, how is this journey to really loving and caring and seeing your self-worth, how is it improved how you are at work with your and setting those boundaries? It must be, yeah, how does it feel to go to work now equipped with all of these tools, and now equipped with those, like, you must feel quite empowered to be like, this is what I'm doing and this is how does it feel? How's it improved your work life?
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that my anxiety before work has like pretty much gone now. Like I used to feel so anxious before, and I think a lot of it was kind of like fear of having those bad shifts again, and fear that like it wouldn't be something I'd be able to handle. So I found that like trusting in myself and also in like the divine source, that I won't be given a situation that I can't handle. And I set up like my energetic protection before work, like surrounding myself in a bubble, and everything. And yeah, I find that I'm just a lot more calm at work as well. And it helps me to do my job better, because when you're in like that high stress, like fight or flight response, it's harder to think more clearly. And I'm able to connect with my patients a little bit better, I believe. And I think it's also really important to have that like calm, stable energy around my patients. Like I've had some patients tell me that they felt really safe around me, just like my energy is like.
That's beautiful.
Mhm.
That's amazing. I have my father's been ill in hospital with all kinds of problems, but for 3 weeks. He just got out today, which is great news. But I've been in every couple of days seeing him, and and if he's listening, he does listen. Hello, Dad. um, and what really amazed me about the nurses is that there was four in the ward that he was in, and the people, the patients changed constantly. But as soon as a nurse walked in, he was like the whole it's like the whole energy of the space like kind of adjusts. It's almost like a fifth person entering the space is so reflected by the people that walked in, and the staff at the Edinburgh Royal Infirmary, like just incredible. Like you couldn't I could not imagine healthcare like that. And they're really not only really caring, but um and whilst it's very kind of Western modern medical science approach, there was a lot of questions about how was he feeling. They weren't going to send him home until they knew that he was aware of like his lifestyle changes. And hello to your dog, Natasha.
Lacey.
It wants me into hello, Lacey. And just this really like loving expansion of like not just even the words, like they wouldn't talk about patients, to talk about, you know, my dad Frank. They would talk about, you know, his the various conditions they'd found, and then they talk about like, well, how's it going to be when he gets home? Like, what if, you know, what if what we think we've diagnosed is right or not? And when they came to his bedside, whether it was a nurse or the doctors, there was just, from my perspective, since the last time I was there about 20 years ago when my kids were born, is like seeing this change that actually there's much more to a human than than just a body that kind of functions or not. And I love that, you're getting that feedback that patients feel safe to, because you have a dramatic effect, right? Just how you're feeling inside, wherever you're going, has this radiating effect of your energy on others. And yeah, so congratulations for your energy. And also I'd love to pick your brains a bit about, how do you feel the future, or what would you like to see in the future of like modern medicine in hospitals, like that world transforming?
Yeah. Definitely like more of the energy healing. Like I know some hospitals have used it and they found like actually the statistics are quite amazing, like a massive reduction in like pain for patients and helping them sleep better, because sleeping in the hospital is really hard to do. And helping with like before and after surgery. So I think, yeah, definitely having like energy healing um, offered often to patients, and just, yeah, a lot of more of the holistic things, and recognizing that people's emotions also play into part of their disease processes. Um, I do think it would be really great to incorporate more of like herbal remedies and that kind of thing, instead of always relying on the like chemical medications, things like acupuncture and massage as well. Um, yeah, because like I see a lot of patients, they're just like lying in their bed, and when they're having symptoms, like if they're having pain or something, we just like offer them, pain medication, Tylenol or whatever.
Mm.
Um, and it's really just like masking the symptoms. And a lot of the time we're not really getting down to the root cause of the issues. And so I think really like lifestyle plays a big factor in that too, like giving people proper nutrition. Because I don't like the foods that we see given to patients in the hospital. Um, and yeah, or really just almost like a diverse kind of healthcare, like incorporating all these different modalities, and really the view of how we're not just like physical bodies, we're so much more to that.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I worked. I did a placement for a couple of months in a hospice, um, called St. Columba's Hospice, in Edinburgh, in Scotland, and they, during the pandemic, they'd shut down one of the floors because they'd lost. I think they'd left a lot of nurses and doctors, so they halved their capacity to take on um, uh, patients, and they decided to change that second floor to all complementary therapies. And so they had aromatherapy and Reiki and reflexology and massage and more, acupuncture as well. And yeah, there was just, I think there's this really beautiful approach they had, which was that anything that helps, like anything that it can incrementally help someone, especially on their path towards the end of their life or their families. Like there's this huge kind of thing, that this phenomenon that we don't pay a huge amount of attention to, is the trauma that people go through when a loved one is terminally ill, and then when they die and afterwards. And they see it as like this whole package, that just the individual that's a patient, there's this whole world around them that's being affected by their condition, and the staff too. And that was one of my job, was to do clinical reflexology for the staff, and it was fascinating as well. Even just doing reflexology, which you would think is is great as a complementary therapy, they would ask for more things too. They'd ask more about the energetic side and the psychic side of their work as well, because it works around a lot of people dying all the time. so there's a lot of, you know, interest and uh, and challenges with death itself. And yeah, I do feel my dad was asking me in hospital, he was like, are you going to come here and teach like energy healing to the nurses one day? And I just felt this, like, I don't know, this kind of gasp of air, like, I don't know. Am I ready for that? I don't know. And then I realized, of course, that I do teach it to at least one. And it I think it's really interesting that those of us that are practicing these you know, holistic approaches to health, it's time for us to step up, right? It's time for us to, as you say, Amanda, like really bring some of these concepts where there's opportunities to and if bring them into hospitals and to support people. I know that if I'd slept in the same bed that my father did for 3 weeks with a fantastic level of care and a really, you know, incredible hospital, physically I would have found it really, really hard. My body would be really struggling. I'd be asking you to to give me some energy healing. And I was interested in your thoughts, Amanda, about how, like, how would we get some of these complementary therapies into hospitals?
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part of it. And I do think like it's really important to do it outside of the hospital as well, as more of a preventive way, like when to prevent things from getting so bad that people have to be in the hospital hospitalized.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but for in the hospital, like I know in Canada here, like we have free healthcare and it's really tight with like the money. Um, so I think that's really a big barrier. But also just like kind of looking at the evidence, like the studies that they did of how helpful the Reiki has been in the hospital, and showing like, you know, it'll actually save money because people won't be requiring as many pain medications. Maybe their stay will be shortened and that kind of thing. So yeah, looking at how it actually is helpful and how it can just have a better outcome for everyone.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I think there are being more and more studies being created, like you say, Amanda. And I know, especially in Canada, when I became Reiki master, I ended up working, and I'm going to name them. They're called Wellsprings. And there's two companies, and they offer cancer care for those that are going through cancer, as well as their support people, John, like you were saying,
Mm.
because it is so draining on the people that support. And they offered, apart from yoga, laughing at different types of yoga and different types of kind of like workshops where people got together through music. Like they had like a music workshop, they had walking workshops, they had how to put wigs on. But what they also had as well is you were able to give 3 Reiki sessions, as well as touch therapy, and then there was another therapy that they were able to give as well. And it was so interesting because when those people got in and tried the Reiki, there was the question of asking, "Are you okay with touch?" And 100%, well, 99.9 said yes. The 0.01% said yes, but not on my incision. And I was like, okay, but that special care of just that touch, they're like, I don't feel like a body that's just being pushed from one place to another. And I think as the demand starts to grow and as people start to incorporate that into their systems, mostly private, I think there's going to be a bigger demand later on for these things. And there is a study that I think I found was they worked out how much energy is needed to mend bone, mend tissue, and all the rest of that. And then they measured it in hertz for different parts. And then they measured the energy coming out of a Reiki practitioner's hands to allow and they started to equate that to the healing of bone, to the healing of tissue, to the healing of all of that. And I think that as more of these scientific studies start to really surface, and as the demand grows for more natural healing as preventative, like you say, I think, I'm hoping, I don't know, you've got a better feel for it in being in situ, that it will start to be more integrated into our healthcare system as both medicines start to work together.
Yeah, that's a really cool study. Like there's always new things, and then because I think really right now a lot of the view is like that stuff doesn't work, or we can't prove that it works. So once we do have more of the evidence, and also when people are requesting that, like they are like, I know this is going to help me, like I want to see this available, that will really push it too.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, my mind's just been racing about all these ideas, but the the first thing, so just as coincidence happened, just before the podcast, my daughter was watching a UK documentary on our National Health Service, and of course, it's like all the horror stories, right? But they were talking about the measures of how long people wait in accident and emergency, and so there was, for instance, you could just see on the person's screen, although the names were all kind of blurred out, there's little traffic light systems, little red, amber, green. And they were showing, like, really sadly, that there was one person right there and then who'd been waiting in accident emergency for 46 hours. And they said that's a breach. They said that's a breach of our own measurement of what we're trying to do for our, well, they kept saying patients and metrics and data and reporting, and didn't use the word person much. And then they said they had 40 of those breaches every day. And they played this clip to some of the people, the senior people in the National Health Service, and they were really shocked. And it was really interesting as well about some of their language. They were saying that's a really, they're quite shocking statistics. And it's like, well, who was that person? And why would they just sat there waiting, going, looking at a computer screen, going, someone, at 46 hours, like, and there was no real help to catch them, right? Other than someone literally looking at a computer check-ins, going, well, we've got a problem. And it occurred to me that sometimes when I remember in my reflexology diploma, seeing and hearing a lot of people would say, but there's no funding for these like clinical studies, these scientific studies and papers, because you don't make money from people like you and me doing the work. Like it's not as easy. You can't like sell them a pill or something. And it just occurred to me that skeptical side, whilst it may be true, I'm sure it's, there's different levels of truth to that across different countries. But I felt like, especially to the preventative part, and especially to the people saving, like actually saving lives, and also saving the money, and all these breaches that you see where hospitals aren't keeping up with their own defined measures, that you can bring in complementary therapies to help people significantly. And it might even be stopping them getting there in the first place, because some of the problems they had in this example of A&E was that downstream all the beds were full, so they couldn't get someone in. They had to stay in the waiting room. There was nowhere else to put them in it other than an uncomfortable chair for 46 hours. And it feels like that would be another way to help, one idea of many, to introduce complementary therapies.
Yeah, totally. Like here in Canada, that's a major problem as well. Like our wait times are super long. And it's because, yeah, like the downstream, we don't have beds open for people to come out of emergency. And, everyone always says, like, we don't have enough nurses, we don't have enough nurses. But I actually think that the problem is we have too many patients. Like there's too many sick people, where our society, like we're just not living in a way to prevent these diseases. So I think the preventive is a really big deal. Preventing, because a lot of these things, like, chronic illnesses, that it can be prevented. But also, yeah, like having the complementary therapies in hospital will help people get out of the hospital faster. Like, there's a lot of people where their conditions are really might be complicated, and people end up staying for a really long time in hospital because they get so deconditioned and weak, and really their just condition goes downhill, and it takes a really long time to recover and get strong enough to leave the hospital. So if we're able to help those people in other ways, instead of like just giving them pills, and yeah, help them recover a lot faster. And I do think also, like, people's mental health is important too. When you're in the hospital for so long, like, your motivation and everything really goes down. And like we see with the placebo effect, even like if you believe something is going to help heal you, it works better.
Yeah.
If people like have the belief that they can heal and get better, and they have that good mentality, it'll help them heal faster.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Yeah, I have hope, and I've seen a future where all medicines work. And I have seen a future where you go to your doctor, but you also meet with somebody that looks after you physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Really get down to the root. And I think you're so right, Amanda. From what I've witnessed in Canada and here in the UK, and I think it's medicine everywhere, it's there to support your illness, not your wellness. And I think with having more people awakening and preparing and things like that is important. And I love that you're embracing both. And I think that takes a lot to look at it, because sometimes people go either one way or the other, and it's knowing that both can work together. And I love that you're a personification of both medicines working together. And I love that your self-care has boosted you into really being and supporting not only yourself but others in an amazing way, and helping them to feel safe to do their healing. And that's quite inspiring.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Shall we jump into meditation?
Yeah, it feels like perfect segue.
Before we do that, Amanda, can you tell people how they can find you, if, or how people can connect with you if they have any questions or would like to share anything about their stories, if you're open to that? How can people get in touch or see Jon, your Instagram or?
Yeah, Instagram would be the best way. My at heart period in period harmony. I also have a website, heartinharmony.ca. So you can look at my page there. Could also send me an email through there. So those would be the two best ways.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story and for letting us talk about this. I think all three of us are very passionate about
Yeah, I know.
doing this. So we're just like, yes, this is awesome. Okay. From all that excitement, shall we meditate?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. We'll take this one. So let's close our eyes. Let's take a couple of deep breaths. Breathing in through our nose and out through our mouths. Let's imagine that we're breathing in light, and as we exhale, release any tension, stress, or negativity that we might be holding on into our bodies. Breathing in light and releasing all that no longer serves. Let's breathe in light all the way down to our feet, Filling the body with light and exhaling the tension, the stress, and anything else we're holding on to. Allow relaxation to move down from your head, and bringing in relaxation into your jaw, down your neck, and your shoulders. Exhaling the tension, the stress. And bringing the relaxation down your arms into the tips of your fingers. Exhaling all that no longer serve. Let's continue to breathe in, feeling the relaxation, moving down our chests, down our backs, and releasing the tension, the stress, bringing in calm. And as we become more and more relaxed, we're able to hold more light, ignite more light within us. Let's continue breathing in the light and relaxation into our glutes, and down our legs, releasing all that no longer serves. Continue breathing in the light all the way down, bringing in relaxation all the way down to the tips of your toes. Letting go, releasing, removing all that no longer serves. Now let's open up the chakras on the soles of our feet, the energy centers. And let's allow the exchange of energy between us and Mother Earth below us. Bringing in the balance of electrons. Bringing in balance. And as this energy is exchanged, we start to feel the nutrients, the energies of Mother Earth move up our bodies, nurturing, caring, into our bodies, washing over every single cell, integrating into our DNA, bringing in new light codes, resetting the energy of our DNA and our RNA to vibrate at a frequency that is optimum and ideal for every more organ, every muscle, every bone, every tendon, the fascia, all systems, replacing the codes, the DNA, with happy, healthy cells, dissolving all dis-ease, all discomfort, and any disharmony within our bodies, within our systems, allowing the energy to flow freely. Continuing to use our breath to release, remove, and dissolve the old energies, the energies that no longer serve. And as we continue to breathe deeply and completely, we start to amplify this energy within us, bringing this energy brighter and brighter, allowing it to extend beyond our skin into our auric field, bringing in light into our energetic field, removing the emotions that we carry that are not ours, that are not healthy, that keep us stuck. And let's breathe in light into our mental bodies, releasing the negative thought forms, the beliefs that keep us stuck. Releasing any programming of people pleasing, of burnout, of stress, of anxiety. Dissolving all frequencies that no longer serve. And let's align all of these bodies with our higher self and our I am selves, our I am present, all that is, allowing the flow of energy through all that we are. Nothing is separate or working together, body, mind, and soul. Allowing all systems to raise their frequency to optimum health. And now let's drop into our heart space. And for one moment, let's ask the heart, let's ask the body, what does a no feel like in our bodies? Breathe in, let that energy go. Thank you, body, thank you, heart, for showing me what a no feels like. Now let's ask our body, let's ask our heart, what does a yes feel like? Thank you, body. Thank you, heart, for showing me what is in alignment with my me, what is a yes, and what is a no. And let's take a couple more deep breaths, amplifying the energies of not only our physical, but our etheric, our mental and emotional bodies, allowing all systems to flow freely, smoothly, cohesively. And as we start making our way back to the here and now, knowing that we've released old programming, old systems, knowing what our yeses, knowing what our nos are, being in optimum frequency, physically, mentally, and emotionally. We can now set out into the world with joy, with happiness, with health, radiating this love, this care. Because as we heal ourselves, we heal collectively. As we set our boundaries, we show others that it's okay to set our boundaries. And as we listen to our bodies, we get to recognize the yeses and the nos. And we honor these because we do love ourselves more than enough to respect our bodies, our minds, our emotions, and our soul. And with gratitude and grace, we say thank you, knowing that when we open our eyes, we open our minds, we open our heart to ourselves and others in a way that is in alignment with who we are. And one more deep breath and exhale. And when you are ready, you can open your eyes. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah,
It was so lovely talking to you, Amanda.
you as well. Yeah, I loved how you included the feeling into yes and no's in the body in your meditation.
Yeah.
That was very cool. Thank you.
Welcome.
My yeses felt up and my nose felt down from my heart, like a really sinking feeling down. And it brought a few tears, happy tears. Thank you, Natasha.
Welcome.
And thank
Yeah,
you,
my
Amanda, for
nose
coming
felt
on.
like heavy. Yeah. Thank you so much, Amanda. So lovely for sharing your journey.
Yeah, thank you. And we'd love to have you on again sometime soon and to hear how your journey is going. And thank you for igniting some sparks in my heart and getting me thinking about how it can help planet more. So thank you and best of luck with your journey. And I'll be including Amanda's details in the description if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or Amazon, or you're listening or watching on YouTube. Wherever you are, please do connect with Amanda and check out her amazing work. And so thanks again for coming on. I will say goodbye to everyone. And by the way, if this podcast resonates with you and you think that you might want to share it with one of your family or friends or coworkers, as you heard from Amanda, not all of us really know that we're burning out. And this podcast is for everyone. So please feel free to share it. And it would be amazing to see us continue to reach more people as we continue to have more wonderful guests on, just like Amanda. So thank you so much again. And I look forward to seeing everyone next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.